The Audit Committee was formed by an ordinance under the old council, and Councilor Cook and I joined it this year. I think what we'll recommend, and I can make the motion, is that we, in response to both the process and what we've heard in the community, that we look at changing auditors, but we maintain Melanson 1 year. Typically, these audit contracts are 3 to 5 years. I would move that we maintain Melanson 1 year and then have another RFP process right away as soon as August. And I'll explain and give my reasoning for that, if I get a second.
Second.
So first, we want to thank Chairman Chris White and Jesse Lynch and Hawk Furman. They spent a lot of time interviewing the two applicants we had to be our auditor. Those were Melanson, which does almost all the cities in the state, and CLA, a larger firm. Both very good, both very capable. This was the maiden run for an audit committee that was created by the old council. And unfortunately, we had some miscues. And that's the reason for our interim recommendation of 1 year. Under the old council, the audit committee was very clear that they wanted to separate the audit from another process called the non-attest services. And the non-attest services are, we get an outside firm to convert our accounting from cash to accrual, is really all it is. Then this year, as we began interviewing firms, we learned that that was going to raise the cost about 15%. And we also learned that it's very common and common practice with proper safeguards to have the same firm do the non-attest and the audit. But the RFP from last year was only for the audit. So in this process, we had to go back to the two bidders, and we had to ask them to what price they would give us if they did both services. None of that was part of the RFP and therefore not in writing. So that was a bit flawed. And then in the process of going back to them, one of the committee members began communicating by text with one of the bidders. And this was an unfortunate development. It was not with any bad intent, but it did create a flaw in the process, at least for Councilor Cook and I. We thought so. We discussed this, and I think the council has had a chance to deliberate on it. And we think it's best to redo the competitive bidding. I liken it to a poker game where you misdeal, and you pull in the cards and redeal them again so that you have a good process. We'll get more bidders, I think. We'll probably get the same bidders. There may be more competition. We can bid for both the non-attest and the audit services, and we can have a clean process. So that's why we'd have a 1 year contract with Melanson in the meantime, which in effect puts them on notice that we're really looking to open this up. So that would be the motion, and happy to answer any questions.
Councilor Cook, also on the Audit Committee.
I just wanted to echo what Councilor Tabor said. It's really important that we get the process right. Financials are really critical for the city. That's a critical role for the city council, and we have to make sure that we are following the best process possible. I think it's a wise decision to move forward with a one-year contract with our current auditor, and then go out to bid again as soon as possible for a longer-term contract for both non-attest services and the audit.
Councilor Moreau.
I'm just wondering if this is even possible where we're doing the 1 year with Melanson. I know that there's been a lot of comment out there about having the same company do it over and over again. Can we specifically request a fresh new team that hasn't done the city before within the company? I don't know if that's possible, but I thought I'd put it out there in the discussions because it might be a way to help alleviate any concerns that there might be out there.
That would be a question likely for the Deputy City Attorney, Assistant City Manager.
She didn't know I was going to make her come
Suzanne
down.
Woodland. And still, I got it out before you got up there.
Yeah. So there has already been some turnover in the team since last year due to the nature of they lost some employees and have added some employees. And the principal, Alina Korsak, I think this is only her second or third year, maybe it's the third year. So she would be finishing up the rotation. They have a rotation period at Melanson. I think it would be difficult to, given that it's March, to dictate that there must be a change because they already do that in terms of their rotation. So.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Bagley.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. So I guess in the discussion and hearing from the councilors that were on the audit committee, appreciating the work that everybody did, in my personal job or private job, I guess you'd say, I often deal with contracts because I sell large commercial equipment. And when I sell to what we call a mom and pop manufacturing plant, it's very easy. You walk in, you talk to the owner, you close the deal with him or her, and you're on your way. I also deal with tier 1 defense contractors, universities, all around the world. And it's a very strident, rigorous process where once the RFP goes out, there's a lot of rules to make sure that happens in a very fair and transparent way. If you don't have that background, you may not be aware of how challenging those rules can be to follow sometimes. And it sounds like maybe the rules were not followed as well as they could have been. So I think this is a good compromise where we kind of take a mulligan. We do 1 more year. I think all of us are aware that everybody would like to try a new audit firm since it's been such a long time. But I don't think we want to do it with such an important thing as the city finances. We want to make sure that we cross every T and dot every I, in my opinion. So I think this is a reasonable compromise.
Thank you, Councilor Bagley. Councilor Tabor.
Yeah, and I just did want to add too, because I think this process had to go on in non-public because we had competitive bidding going on, and it's awkward if you start doing that in public session because one bidder sees or there's a discussion of the other bidder. But what we did also do, and this was good work by all the citizens on this committee, we did extensive interviews of the 2 firms. We checked references. The whole committee was in on reference calls. We developed a matrix that's 70% the qualitative abilities of the firms, 30% the cost. And so all that good work, I would hope, would go into the second process. And hopefully we get more bidders.
Thank you, Councilor Tabor. I will just add, if there are no other comments or questions, that I appreciate the work of the audit firm or the audit committee. I appreciate the work of the council, of staff, and of the citizens that served on the committee. I think that when I supported this 2 years ago, it was in recognition that this was an opportunity to bring greater transparency to the city of Portsmouth's finances, how we spend your money in an effort to serve you, the citizen. It's unfortunate that there were a slight breakdown in process, a process that is important. I don't believe any of these were with ill intent, but in representing the government and the people, we have to follow a process, and that process has to be able to sustain scrutiny. And I do not believe that it could sustain that scrutiny in this event. So I appreciate that the recommendation has been basically to start this process over in a matter of months. And so when August comes and this is developed, I am confident that the work that the Audit Committee, good work that the Audit Committee has done, will not be in vain, and that the City of Portsmouth can see exactly the caliber of people that we have and the seriousness we take when it comes to taxpayer finances. So with that, I will have a roll call vote on the motion. If we could just read the motion back, Kelly, because
Yep.
Councilor Tabor, he editorialized after. I just want to make sure that I'm not agreeing to any of that.
Okay. That we maintain Melanson for 1 year and then have another RFP process in August.
Perfect.
Okay?
Everyone understands